All right, hey everybody, we are live. I'm Jeff, founder of the Church Digital. We're doing a stream here. As near as I can tell, if the beauty of the technology of Riverside works, we are streaming this live to Twitch and to YouTube simultaneously. And so we're excited about this stream on a Thursday afternoon. I'm joined with Jay Kranda, original gangsta, OG, one of the OGs of digital ministry, online campus pastor at small church you may have heard of, Saddleback Church. Jay, every time I see you, it's like I keep asking, 15 years, right? 17 years,
I'm like
25 years?
15, not
You
17.
and
No,
Al
no, no, no,
Gore
no, no.
invented the internet, and then you started doing church on it, like
Yeah,
simultaneously.
yeah,
Like, what are we looking at?
yeah. I've been the online pastor in some capacity since early 2013, but was starting in 2010. So yeah, it's an evolution of it. But online community pastor, Jeff. Online
Online
community.
community
That's
pastor.
it.
I apologize. Titles change so quickly, and so that's news to me. But hey, listen, we're excited to be here. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Twitch, I am watching it there too. And so feel free to jump into chat, engage, ask away, and we'll be drilling into comments and engaging with it as well. And we've got friends all over the place in those spaces as well. And we're going to be doing this on demand as well. So hey, if you want to engage even on demand, I'll do this. My phone number is 484-324-8724. Feel free to text me, 484-324-8724. Yes, I did say that very fast. And yes, you'll have to go back and scroll it because I'm not going to slow down there. But love it. And so, hey, Jay has a new book out.
Yep.
And I haven't actually seen said book yet. Do you actually have the physical copy you can hold up?
Yeah.
Oh,
I have
there it is.
I have the proof. So it says do not resell. So that has to be removed. But yes, this is
Okay.
it's a
So
real
that's
book.
not like a gimmick that you put on the book. So
Yeah.
like,
Caution.
no, yeah. So to get
Caution
other
here.
people to buy it instead of like handing that one copy around. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
So you got a book?
I got a book. My daughter, it's funny, I got mailed. I'm self-publishing it, so I'm using Amazon's print on demand model, which is really, as somebody who, I did a book probably over 10 years ago, and you had to pay monthly to host stuff. It's crazy some of the tools that you can use. But my daughter, we got the book, and my daughter, my youngest, she opened it and she like did this and smelled it. She's like, that smells like a new book. But I can't believe it. You work on something for so long, and then it comes and you're like, oh my goodness. So there's also an ebook and an audio version on Audible and all those platforms. But I was really pumped to be able to also do a physical book. It was fun.
Yeah. So we're right off the top. Let's just go ahead and plug it. We're going to get in there and talk about it. The title is Church Online is in Red Tape, not NOT, the answer. And that's already, people have been like, what's wrong with Jake Kranda? I was like, you got to read it. You got to read it. Just get the book. But where do they get it? Where, if somebody wants information, where are they going?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon, and you can get it on Apple Books or Barnes & Noble, whatever. But if you go to jkranda.com, I have direct links there where you can also buy team bundles. You can get the PDF and audio if you want to share it with your whole team. I give really good discounts. The book is written to a framework and some action steps so that you can go through it with your team to really unlock digital strategy for your church to your next level. And it's not about, really the title online church is not the answer. It's really meant to be, people think about digital usually just about streaming church. And my whole endeavor here, and why the subtitle is beyond just streaming to hybrid disciple making, is actually use digital for all the meat in between. Like let's not just, streaming church is great. And I think a lot of churches, especially when there's platforms like the Church Online platform that ministries like Life Church have made available for free, which are amazing. And then you have, when Facebook made live streaming free in like 2013, thousands, if not tens of thousands of churches started streaming. But there's much more. You can actually disciple people online. And my charge with this book is to kind of supercharge that and provide a framework and a guide. I don't have to fly into your city and help you. You can just buy a $15 book and you can go through it as a team. And my hope is it opens the eyes to church leaders, both paid, non-paid, everywhere. And so it was really fun to put together, and I really hope it helps churches think about digital in a bigger way.
Yeah, I don't even understand what you're saying right now. So you can disciple people
digitally,
digitally?
real people.
I don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somehow we can talk on the other side of the country. You can be in Florida, I
I,
can be, and we can hang out. It's crazy.
I just it's foreign concept right now, and so it's interesting. So PushPay, PushPay State of the Church Tech Report: 91% of churches consider their ministry hybrid.
Mm.
And the following stat was 90% of them are broadcasting their services online. And so it's very similar how, those two stats go together. But, things like, discipleship and relationship and digital, no, you got to do that in the building. And so I love this idea, and we're gonna drill into it a little bit. I know we got some people hanging out with us in Twitch chat, Digital Hexagon, Flat Cap, among others. And so, hey, thanks for walking in. Questions for Jay Kranda as we're getting into this. Lewinson, by the way, who is from, wow, okay, so he's from Africa. I'm
Oh,
trying
wow.
to think what the time zone is in Africa. It's like 8 o'clock at night, so that's not that bad.
Yeah.
But hey, good evening. Glad you could hang out with us after hours here. Hey, so talk with us a little bit. First off, um, I offered to write a book with you in 2020, and you turned me down. And and
Well, I
and
was
I
writing a
just
book.
I like you hurt my feelings a little bit, Jay Kranda. And so now I see that, in the time since then, I wrote two books,
True.
and you only wrote one. So guess who's the winner? No, I'm kidding. But how long have you been working on this book?
Since 2020. So probably it's a little over 4 years or a little under. So it
Okay.
was I started writing something in COVID, and then, um, yeah, and then I actually scrapped like 30,000 words because I didn't really like what was evolving during COVID with digital. Because I think a lot of the questions was, where is all this going to land? And yeah, and then I think just through our church embraced digital a whole nother way coming out of COVID, and I think I had more clarity. So I just kind of, I'm primarily a pastor at a local church, and I just slowly wrote it, edited, and worked on it, shared it with people, had feedback, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. But it definitely was a long. I never thought I would get done with it because I probably took way too much time on it. But I think it's really, as you know, as somebody who talks about this, one of the reasons why a podcast or even a blog is really a good format with digital is because things are constantly changing. And so
Yeah.
print, you know, getting a book down, the deliverable, it's it it can take 2 years to publish a book depending on your format and your method, and stuff changes too quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think I really struggled with, how do you write, like, I really wanted to write something that was going to be a little bit more timeless and not so timely. And so I tried my best. There will be timely things in here that I know will be dated for sure in the next couple of years, but I think the principles are going to be at least timeless for the next 20 years. My hope is, and then when it changes, it changes. But yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to write. It's not something that I would say I'm gifted at. It takes a lot of extra energy, so a lot of early mornings, late nights. Then finding out how to publish it. I did try to publish it with some publishers, learned a lot through that process, and then self-publishing. Recording your own audiobook was a huge learning curve, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, so it's just like, there's a lot of stuff you figure out. But my hope is it really blesses the church to the average. I wrote it for the church like under 300, like how you should think about digital. I do provide some frameworks of how we do church online, but that's an appendix of, like, if you
Yeah.
really want to know, like, this is how we do it. But even at the end, I have an appendix of 25 questions, and it's really geared for you to go through that as a team, go through these questions together and answer it. So I wrote it. I meant for it to be, it'd be like having me there on site for a couple days. But instead it's $15 and you can go through it. And that's kind of my hope, is churches leverage it that way.
I love that. I love the idea of a 300-person church doing digital. Like,
Good.
to me, it's phenomenal that more small churches are not excited about digital ministry. Like, I go to a church plant. Ironically, like, we broke the 300 barrier on a Sunday.
Oh yeah.
In the past couple of weeks. Like, we just got a physical building within the past year, and it's solidifying things well. But even my church is hesitant to get into digital because so much effort goes into the physical approach. And they in a small setup like we are, we can't compete with the worship and the production style that's happening at the mega and the giga churches that are around us. And so there's almost like this, oh, we don't even want to try. Whereas I would say, man, the relational approach that you can have as a small church, doing that in digital is so much more exciting. And so I love that you just said you wrote this more to a 300-person church, because that's the blue ocean of digital church, man. There's so much opportunity for small churches to engage relationally. Digital Hexagon, I go to a 20-person church or so in person, several online in Germany and one in Canada. They do a weekly Zoom Bible study before the weekly service. Yeah, and that's just a great idea of a small church even leaning into this. So good. So why not the answer? Like there's kind of, okay, you got to read the byline, make people get into it. Like, do you find a lot of people like wigging out on you when you're like not the answer? Like what's been the go-to?
Well, part of it is that my hope is that I wrote this in such a way that it's not to convince the people that are already on board. My target are people that are kind of out or on the fences. So I meant to almost like, here's to read something that maybe it's going to give me, ammo to fight why online isn't the answer. But my hope is I change their mind by the end of the book. And so I really meant it to be like, you got people that are laggers on this, maybe leaders or volunteers on your team. You can hand them something to really process through. And I hope they start to see the possibilities of digital. Also, I don't believe the answer is, just online. I think the answer is this hybrid together mentality. So a lot of people, they think of digital ministry, online ministry, whatever they want to call it, and they think of it as a separate, oh, you got to lean completely into digital only. It's got to be a VR, streaming, whatever the world it is. And it's like, no, I think we are a body and soul, material and immaterial beings. And I think churches should have both. And so really it's meant to be, sometimes the zealot online guy like you or me or girl, we're trying to just get them to do everything. We're treating it like capital S. It's going to solve all your problems.
Right.
And I don't think digital is going to solve those problems. And I think you gotta integrate it. And so I am kind of playing tongue in cheek, even in my cover, if it says online church is not the answer and not is red tape. And really my hope is that if you leverage digital right, it can be one of the many answers. And the kind of the play there is that you could take the red tape off and it says online church is the answer. And I meant to be, it's supposed to be a little play on it. Like, no, think about this more strategically. And so, yeah, one of the illustrations that I use in the book, I got from Matt Engel from Glue,
Sure.
This idea of, marriage. The idea is that my wife and I, we text and interact. Right now, actually, we're on a call and she's texting me a photo of her lunch. And we're like, because we were talking about something this morning and we're interacting digitally right now, but guess what? I'm still going to go home to her. And so the thought is that our relationship is not weakened because of digital, it's strengthened. Now, the same ways digital can get in the way of our relationship if it's improperly implemented. But I think churches need to think of it this way. It's not this separate thing, but this integrated thing. So Jody and I, my wife, I'm always going to go home to her and we're always going to use digital. And we see those as they work together. And churches see it as a separate thing. I'm trying to bring it in as one thing. And then obviously, beyond just streaming, it's just like beyond just putting it out on Twitch or whatever the world, it's like so many churches, they kind of like, that's the one thing they do digitally. And I'm like, that's probably might be the fourth thing I might invest digitally into at the start. Especially if you're a smaller church. I think I would much rather you focus on Instagram reels to encourage your members during the week, maybe an email strategy. Like I could tell you about maybe a Zoom thing that you do quarterly. I don't know, but like streaming on YouTube, it's great, but I would rather you do shorts on YouTube than streaming your full service and just do a audio capture that's a podcast. But these are the things that churches, they're not trying to do this stuff purposely. They're just copying and pasting because they don't have a lot of time. They don't have a framework. And my book kind of tries to lay out a little bit of way to think about this a little bit more holistically.
Interesting. I love this. By the way, we've got a mutual friend here, Jade Earhart, in the Twitch right now. And Jade's one of these guys that is very aggressive in digital and through the church digital. We interact. Jade's like a Twitch streamer as a digital missionary and does a lot of work and does a lot of stuff in virtual reality too. And so like I would argue, and even the guy that's, one of the champions of digital church, digital only church, you really need both. We need the hybrid model to be successful. We need the digital only model to be successful. We need a physical micro church, a house church model to be successful.
Yeah.
The brick and mortar church, overall, unfortunately, I was telling somebody this earlier. It's like, over the past 25 years, the brick and mortar model has lost 25%. That's not to say that the model's bad. The model's going to reach that the model's going to reach, but people are diversifying. And so we need a digital approach to step up and fill in some of those gaps. We need a micro, we need workplace, and we need some different ways to really start to engage and connect with people in different methods, because people are just diversifying so much in their interactions. And that's why I love this idea of what you're talking about with shorts and not streaming the services. Services, if you're a small church, it's a great way to connect with people that are already familiar with your church. Somebody that's out of town on a Sunday, and do that, because I think there's value in that. But if you really want to engage with people and you really want to be missional with it, and getting a team of digital missionaries and empowering them to witness and share Jesus in their context, utilize Instagram Shorts or YouTube Shorts to develop a digital strategy in that approach, Instagram Reels, man, that's a step in the right direction. And so, let me ask, because like my book, VR in the Metaverse Church, I published it in November of 22. In January 23, it was almost entirely invalid, because I referenced a platform that at the time was called Allspace VR.
Yeah.
That the majority of churches were on. It was run by a nice company that maybe you've heard of called Microsoft. And somewhere around that same time that I published my book, Microsoft started leaning heavy into a thing that you probably heard of called ChatGPT. And all the interest went into ChatGPT, and they shut down Allspace VR. My book went invalid. And now it's a very interesting, placeholder on my bookshelf, pretty much, because it's like worthless. I'm kidding. It's not worthless. It's a good read, but it's not, didn't have the impact that it would. So you want a book that's timeless. Like, how much are you getting into some of these techniques and platforms in the book? Like, what are you sharing here?
Well, I had the hopeful reminder that one of our mutual friends, Neil Smith, wrote a book about social media years ago. And he published it through Group Publishing, if I'm remembering right. And I remember this because he was one of my first friends that I knew that were like an online pastor that wrote a book. And he would jokingly say, this came out in 2010, maybe 12, I forget. But, he jokes now how he wrote about MySpace in that book and how quick stuff just gets dated. And so so I get I try my best to be very principle based. So like, for example, like I'll talk about like, I think online groups, like pastors should think about more opportunities to get on video with people than just pushing out content. And so like, if you did monthly a 30-minute pastor connect on Zoom, and you just got 2 people every month, and you did that after 12 months, you would have a core team. And so I go, hey, Zoom is a great option right now, but like pick the option that makes the most sense based off of your audience and what you're doing, because technology is regional. So I kind of recommend things, but I'm very light. I go, hey, I remember I talk about this example of during COVID, I was doing some training on Zoom with pastors in Russia. And I remember there was like, I talked about this idea that we're kind of agnostic with our technology and platforms. We like to not be too dependent, and we'll move to something that's easier. And I said, whatever's the best. If it's Zoom, great. Well, at the time, Russia, there was a lot of control because there was a lot of stuff around Zoom being in China and some of their politics. Everybody in Russia used this other platform, and I didn't know the platform. And I remember everybody talked. There were like, I forget, there were like 30 Russian pastors on this Zoom. And I remember they all talked about this one platform. And I said, I don't even know how to say that platform, but clearly that's the platform you should be on.
Yeah.
And so you try your best. So I do my best to kind of say like, for example, like we were messaging before and you're like, do you have a Discord or this or that? And like, I don't use Discord. I have a Discord, but I don't use it. But I would never be anti-Discord for a group to meet on. I would just say, meet with your friends. And the answer of how you meet is dependent on how your friends connect. And 9 times out of 10, you have a platform. Before Zoom, there was the Skypes, there was the GoToMyPC, a conference meeting, one-on-one Euros. There were all these tools that existed. just Zoom became dominant because it became an easy click. And so I think I like to use the most popular because usually that means people are the most familiar with it. And so, if I have to jump on something, like sometimes when I have to do a group call on Google Meets, for example, I don't use Google Meets that much. And I am a little out of my space when I'm on Google Meets because I don't use it 9 times out of 10. The
Hmm.
same way as if you send me a Cisco client that I have to log in to do, like, I'm just not comfortable with it. You want people to be comfortable. You don't want technology to get in the way. So I just tried my best to reference platforms, but not to say this is the platform. The same way as
Sure.
like, hey, I'm not going to say YouTube's the platform. I'm going to say YouTube's one of the most dominant, but you just want to provide content that people can be discovered on. By the way, YouTube's probably the most dominant right now, but it is a hard line to definitely, I did not reference Alt Space VR. That's all I know.
Okay. As long as you didn't do all space VR, I can guarantee the book's gonna
I
last
do
longer
reference VR
than it
chat,
did
I
mine.
think. So, if VR chat
Okay.
goes
Okay.
down, then we'll see what
VR
happens.
chat's got some legs on it. The decentralization of leadership there is interesting. Hey, our friend Jade's asking a question here. By the way, before I get to Jade's question, um, Discord is used by the Russian military to coordinate attacks in Ukraine. Interesting. Read an article on that. I want to say it was CNN, and so
That makes sense.
um,
Wow.
don't judge our Discord channel. I don't know. I doubt we've got any Russians that are coordinating through TCD's Discord. But as a plug off of that, you can go to discord.thechurch.digital. Get subscribed to our server. Hey, Jate is asking the question. You were talking about sharing clips on Reels and things like that. What's Jay's expected steps for a non-seeking, non-Christian sermon clips on YouTube or Instagram Reels is great, but that's going to reach already Christians primarily. What would an evangelical approach or what is like a follow-up process maybe look like for something like that?
Well, for sure, one of the big things that I kind of try to echo is this idea that thinking of not one shot with digital. It's not just shorts, but it's like holistically. So, like, for example, I talk about the 4 S's of like, where are you streaming, meaning where you're putting your content, strengthening events, which are like, you know, discipleship stuff you do, like online groups on Zoom. Maybe it's like an LMS or a video thing. And then you have social, like on your social platforms. Then you have your systems, like your CRMs, your giving platforms. So really my big challenge here is there are a lot of these hacks and things that you're trying to game and they change every week. And so it's like, right now it's like vertical video, 60 seconds, so you can post it on shorts. Instagram, it's easy, it's scalable, it can relate. The issue with some of these things tactically and hacky is that they change. And so I would say you can build a whole strategy and change. But if you have the principle of like, no, we want to be somewhere where we want to be discovered, it's easy, it's scalable, then you can kind of pivot when, it's like 2 years ago, what was the audio podcast boardroom app? It wasn't sound. It was, what was
Oh
it?
my gosh.
It's like Twitter
It starts with
Spaces kind of
this.
ripped it off.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. It
but
started with
everyone's like,
Clubhouse, Clubhouse, Clubhouse.
yeah, Clubhouse. Like everyone's like,
Yeah.
Oh, audio is great. It's like a podcast, but it's real. And it's like, the answer is, it's not that it's not. It's just like, it's very popular right now. And I think it will have a place, but Clubhouse kind of still has its role, but it's died in its own way. And so I think it's just hard. And so, like, for example, like, yeah, like I still think that, like I was just telling somebody this earlier. I think the average church is too focused on uploading a 45-minute sermon every week. And I would go, why don't you just, if I had limited resources and budget, I would be like, let's just make that a podcast. We'll capture that through the board already, the soundboard already, and that'll be a podcast that goes
Hmm.
up. And then let's just have the pastor walk into a room and just give two 60-second clips that are more conversational and topical, because like it's not, nobody, like at the end of the day, your sermon title, like the average person doesn't really care. But like, instead of talking about, maybe you're talking about the love of Christ, in John 3:16, but maybe it's like, hey, it's like a 60-second, like, and again, this is where you got to be aware of the trends. It's like, hey, do you not feel loved, or are you going about your day and you feel frustrated? By the way, do you know that John 3, and it's like more targeted. So I think one of the things that's the biggest thing about social media is that it's all about feeding the algorithm, and you got to be aware of what formats are being more weighted towards the algorithm. So one of the reasons why Reels gets more reach is because it's more weighted in the algorithm because of the Explore tab on Instagram, and also on TikTok. And so again, if you were part of this 3 to 4 years ago, stories were the rave when stories first got
Yeah.
released. And then all of a sudden stories aren't the rave and reels are the rave. And so I would think about that way. And I just think it's about what's the relative thing. And then I don't think, for example, short form content like reels are about a CTA of getting them to message you or to show up on Sunday. I think it's about getting them to pause in their day and feel encouraged by you. And then maybe that will consequentially lead to them messaging you, because a messaging strategy would be more of an ad strategy. So for example, like our ministry, we run a Instagram reel ad that is the call to action is to message us. But we wouldn't do that. There isn't a message feature like that in just a reel post. We could say that, but it's not going to be natural. So I think this is why, again, I would just say it's like, you got to think holistically, and you're not just taking one swing, you're taking many swings, and you do that by a holistic approach. And then you can tactically, when you're in one lane, you can get a little fancy, but this is the hard part, is that you're chasing a little bit of the tech trends. And so like, whatever I say right now might be irrelevant. That's why I didn't write about that. I literally said like, check out, this guy, these websites are great because you can be on top of, I know when I first got into social media, I followed very closely Social Media Examiner. They were the dominant deal because they're keeping on. And now it's hard to chase all that. I know that's probably not the answer he's looking for, but that's how I would think about it.
Well, I want to clarify something you said because it was interesting. And if you're saying the same thing I'm thinking, then like I'm actually going to steal your language. I may give you credit. And so you're saying, more holistic view. What I often say is, building trust takes time. You got to boil the frog slowly.
Yeah.
You're building a relationship with your followers on social media, on the threads and on TikTok. And so trying to get them to a CTA, like if you just keep bombarding a CTA over and over and over again, they're going to unfollow you because they're going to feel used in this. But if you are building a relationship, if you're providing value, if making them pause and think, and then eventually you ask for, some sort of a CTA or give some way for them to connect or engage, then that's going to provide, they're going to be more interested in doing that because you've built trust over time instead of using them as an asset. We're kind of aligned in that, right? As a holistic view?
Yeah, like there's too many church, and again, it's hard because, part of the struggle with digital is that there's so many options, it can be paralyzing. It could feel like a buffet, like where in the world do I start? And I think with this type of stuff, it's like a lot of churches just like, they're just saying, come on Sunday, come on Sunday, come on Sunday, come on Sunday. And it's like, yeah, so we're going to think about social. Like, I don't think it should be used as come on Sunday type of ads. Obviously that's what we want, but the way that you interact on these platforms, you got to speak their language. And I think I would rather, because again, there is this mentality that sometimes pastors can have or churches can have of come here and then we'll minister to you. And I think the thought with these platforms, if it's YouTube, Instagram, whatever, we get to engage in the marketplace and in the city space on their terms. And so I'd rather have a vertical video talking to you, hey, we're talking about this, but it's not just cuts from the worship service, but it's like, no, hey, look. And it's like engaging them on their terms. Again, it's like Jesus talked to the woman of the well because he was in the city during, that time of day, and he engaged the woman. He didn't just wait for the woman to come to the synagogue or the temple. He engaged her. And I think it's just being relative to the platforms. And that's where it's hard. How are we relevant on these platforms? Because it is changing. And again, I see it as a stewardship question. I'm not saying every church needs to be doing Instagram Reels or whatever. That's not my solution.
Sure.
I just think that is a solution based off of your objective, where you're at. And again, that's where you fill in the blanks based off of what you're trying to do. And it's going to be different. We have different denominations, different theology, different approaches. We have the same goal, but we're going to go about it differently. And I think God uses all those different strategies to reach different people.
One of the things I know about you is that you are one of the best in probably the church world. You are second to Barbara Carnero. I want to give her credit when I say this, but next to Barbara Carnero, who's on TCD Leadership, you are the best when it comes to audience personas, discovering who's the audience, and starting to like develop content and messaging and voice that's aimed at the people that are engaging with your content. How would a 300 person church, even from a practical standpoint, how would a 300 person church even go down that path?
Yeah,
How'd you like that setup, Jay Kranda?
it's a loaded thing. Definitely. I think, I've been very fortunate where I've sat under leaders that have a very clear target and their heart breaks for that target. And so I think it's something that's really hard to fake. So, I know about this there's companies like HubSpot that has built out this persona, mosaic type of strategy where like Saddleback famously, Rick had Saddleback Sam, and, he had 2.5 kids, he had a white picket fence, and, he lived in Orange County, and so the idea is when Rick was preaching his message, he was talking to Saddleback Sam. And this has been, this is what direct marketing type of people kind of like it is. And it's honestly, it's not too different than, when Paul's in Ephesus, he's using this illustration of this goddess. And when he's in Athens, he's using this illustration. He's just contextualizing. Literally, Paul is using different types of Greek if it's academic. I mean, there's nothing new about this concept. I think it's just more applying it. And so like I have found, and because I've actually watched this now with technically 2 different generations, our founding pastor who is, he's in his 70s, and now our current pastor who's in his early 40s. I think ultimately you just reach the stage of life you're in, and you kind of, at a natural base. And I would just encourage, like, you talk out of your own kind of experiences and so forth. And so like, I know like people would say this and, as Pastor Rick was kind of getting a little older, one of the things was he had to use more examples for his grandkids if he wanted to reach younger people. Now, God still used him to reach younger people, but I think ultimately just you come out of your own heart. And so like, I think one of the hard things is that if you don't have, like, if you want to reach people in their 20s and 30s and you're in your 50s and 60s, ultimately you just need to be around more 20s and 30s. And it's really hard to fake that. And I think the people who do it well and figure it out, it's because they're evangelistic. And I would encourage somebody who's older, if you are older and you're out of that demographic, lean into your kids and lean into your grandkids as examples. Again, I can look at my kids. Like, for example, I was just like my kids, I have a 13-year-old, an 11, and an 8, and they all play video games with their friends in different ways. They play Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, and I'm not a gamer anymore. Like I don't game. It's not, I like watching them play games, but I don't game. But the reason is that if I'm going to, let's say, build a ministry off of middle school to target middle school students, I would need to be around them a lot more to learn their language, and understand that. So the encouragement is to be around those people. And then the idea is that you're no longer, because I can just easily project what I think. Oh, I think this is dumb or this is dumb. And it's like, no. It's not about what you think. It's about who you're trying to reach. And I think the people that are best out of it have a real heart. Like I've watched my founding pastor, I watched my new pastor. Like when they talk about unreached people, especially in the target demographic, they cry. Like it's deep in their bones. And and that got easier for me.
So good.
I don't cry as much. I'm probably a little emotionally
at some
more
level.
dead. A little broke up. Is it good?
No, yeah, broke up on my side. Keep talking. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. No, but I think ultimately, as I've had more conversations with people, like one of the things I do in this book, I have this exercise at the end that one of my bosses did early on called a vision story, where you write out the story of a person, you give them a name, and you actually talk about how they got connected to the church, and you write out all the steps. And what I found with that exercise is that it made me actually think about everything we needed to build and do. And then ultimately what happens is, because I've been doing this long enough, I've ran into that person named James over and over again. And so I think it's just like, you got to talk to those people, you got to think about it, and then you got to document it. I have pages of Google Docs and things in my folders of ideas I've had, but I have found documenting it, visualizing your process, especially in an engagement strategy, creating a persona, allows you to get better at it. for sure. Because there's something about putting it down on digital or paper or something, like people get to at least point at. It's like writing a book. I read a book and then people are gonna. I know someone's gonna misunderstand me, but at least I have something out there to critique. And I think if we have something to critique, then we can evolve to the next stage, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. By the way, you were talking about Saddleback Sam earlier. Saddleback Sam now works for Saddleback, as I recall, right? Is that true?
Well, I mean, Saddleback Sam now is just Saddleback Grandpa. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
but I felt like I met somebody at Saddleback, and they were like, "No, that's the original Saddleback Sam." Maybe
I don't know this. I mean, I believe it. But
okay.
I know we have Sam's on staff, so maybe
Yeah,
that's
it was maybe it's Sam. Maybe I'm making stuff up. I thought it was Sam's in a mission department, or maybe it was another guy. It was
there
when I was
is a
one of
Sam
the
on the
finishing the
mission
task
team,
thing.
so
Somebody's
that's
like, "No,
probably.
that's the Saddleback Sam."
I don't think he's but because he's too young. But
Okay.
but that's funny.
That's funny. Okay. All right. So once again, somebody's lying to Jeff. That's cool. Love it. Hey, why we may have touched on this briefly. Like you have a giga church background. Like I don't even know what Saddleback is hitting on a weekend in physical space. It's definitely five figures. Online, massive reach. Um, you wrote a book to a 300-person church. Why?
Well, I came to faith at a church under 500 people, and I came to faith in high school, and the church kind of changed my life. Obviously, Jesus did the work of calling and drawing me and changing me, but it's the church that kind of really saved me in a meaningful way in the sense of my day-to-day life. Because I kind of came up, my dad was kind of out of my life. My mom was going through some heavy mental health and drug issues, and I got plugged into a church, and my pastor became like a dad to me, and the church became a family. I actually spent more time there than anywhere, and I know the power of what a church can do, a healthy church. And when I was thinking about this, like I've been fortunate to be able to speak to a lot of people, travel around the world, and talk to cool people, and hiring somebody like me to come in and help on something it can be costly, and I hate that I couldn't scale my time. And I thought about my founding, the church I came from. I thought about like Pastor Kenny, who's the pastor there, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how can I help them? Like, I just don't have enough time to help all these churches. Like, it's just not how I can't clone myself. I've created resources on my website, and I've done courses, but there's still something to the idea. I still think ideas get shared via book still. And as somebody who reads 30 to 40 books a year, I know like that's how ideas get pushed forward. And my hope was, okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to spend a ton of time into this thing. I'm going to sell it for $15. Technically I'm going to sell this book. It's $15. I only make like $5 or $6 off each book that gets sold or whatever. But a church can afford a book. Like they can afford a book. And my hope is that it is written in such a way that instead of having somebody like me come in and spend a couple of days with you or whatever, you just buy a book and you go through the book with your team. And that was my hope. And I kind of thought of my church I came to faith in. And because, I worked at one of the largest churches in the world for the last, 15 years. But I still think of that church when I think of our problems are very different. And the average church doesn't, the amount of stuff I've been able to screw up over the last 15 years of digital trying, like I got a doctorate in digital ministry because of the freedom my church gave me, and the average church won't do that. And my hope is in maybe 15, 20 years, this book is irrelevant. Like we have enough people coming up out of seminary and planting churches that this is just like, why do we still need this? Like this should be duh. But I think moving forward, unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of people. We'll have movements of people. I have a chapter in here about the future, and I think we'll have people doing more digital only, and we'll have more like anti-digital movements. And I think we'll have both. I kind of make the joke that I think the future is more like Star Wars than Star Trek, where you'll have the good and the bad together. You have the Tatooines and you have the Death Star's future technology. It won't be Star Trek where everything's like solved. I don't think that happens till Jesus returns. And so, so it's going to be messy. So my hope is just, I wrote it to, I didn't even write it for the pastor. I wrote it for the church leader. And so I actually removed early draft, I wrote it. My early title of this book was actually Thinking Digitally as a Church Leader, as a pastor. And I rewrote it after some feedback. I actually got that feedback from a publisher who kind of rejected the book, but gave me a lot of good feedback. And I was like, yeah, I got to write it for the church leader, not for the pastor, because there's not like the average pastor probably doesn't even think of them as a pastor. I just want to write it for like a volunteer, like even not thinking of it as a staff. Like there's only so many staff in the world. Like I'm in the minority of minority that gets to get paid for this. Like and I don't even know if that will last the next 50 years. And so, yeah, it's just my heart for the church, and I'm hoping it adds value. So
I love that. You're reaching out to the small church volunteer that has vision, that's looking for validation and affirmation. And to be honest, oftentimes that doesn't come from the pastor. I've met plenty of people that their pastor doesn't understand the vision, their denomination doesn't care about it. And they go to Google and hit me up on YouTube and find something about the Church Digital. When we wrote when Dr. John Harris and I wrote Sharing Jesus Online, like very early as well, we said, hey, we're gonna write this to the not even like a church staff person, just somebody that's in the pews, and try to figure out, at a personal evangelism level, how to activate that person that's in the pew, so to speak. And so there's it's been a lot of opportunities, and there's been a lot of conversations with normal people. It's funny. I was in a meeting the other day, and Jason, our friend Jason Morris, he actually called them normies. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't called them normies in like years. So
that's funny.
Love that. So do you have another book in you? You
No.
working on something else?
No, I'm done.
No,
it's just no.
You're done.
I'm good. Let's let this saturate. No, I like we got enough. One of the things that I love, what I'm super blessed on, is there's so many, like, the thing I love about online is in digital is that there's so much stuff being figured out. And so there's enough fun things we're doing at my church that I'm just excited that we're figuring out and exploring. So I want to, this has been the side project for the last 3 to 4 years. And so I actually, a couple weeks ago, when I got it kind of done and I was waiting for some publishing stuff to be figured out, my wife was gone and with the kids on something. And I remember I was at home and I was like, I had nothing to do. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing. I haven't had this in a very long time. I remember I was like, I watched something and I was like, my brain couldn't even, I was like, I don't know what to do with myself because I've been so buried in this book, and thinking about it and doing the ebook formatting, editing, and so forth. So no, I have no plans or anything. And so we'll see. Maybe there's something else I can do on it, like a video course or something down the road, but we'll go from there. But yeah.
Well, I don't want to poke the bear, but it took you 4 years to write one book. I wrote 2 books in less than 6 months.
It's true. I know.
I'm just saying, man, like there's times. I actually had somebody, Jay, I'm not going to say who this is, but it's an influential person in the Christian space. And he said, Jeff, with all the blogs and podcasts and videos that you're doing, you should write 3 books a year. And I was like, I mean, that's a lot of AI. Like if I can get AI to ingest the youtube.com/thechurch.digital and turn that into book form, that'd be great. But I don't know if you've discovered this, but AI doesn't talk crazy enough to write the stuff that I write about. Like we're still radical enough on the church digital side that like we really don't see AI like doing that. I do want to ask this question. My internet may be breaking up, so hopefully it's sticking. Crappy internet at home, sorry. All right, so you said Church of the Future is more like Star Wars than Star Trek. All right, I want to pull the thread here.
Yep.
Saddle back. Who is it in the Star Wars universe?
Who is it in the Star Wars universe?
Who is it in the Star Wars universe?
Oh,
who are you?
So the problem is that I'm going to get pushed on my lack of knowledge of the universe, and so I don't know. But I would say we're in the Galactic Senate for sure. Like we have a planet.
Okay. You have a planet. And are you the one that just blew up? Are you the hub of where everybody is? Are you the one that got destroyed in a civil war? Are you the Wookiees?
I'm mad at my
You
depth here.
don't know.
I'm mad at my depth. I haven't watched enough. I haven't watched any of the recent Star Wars shows outside of Andor, and so like I don't even know. I don't know anything, but we have influence. We have influence, and we're
Okay,
there.
you haven't.
We're not on the dark side. We're not backing that secret Darth Lord dude who's faking it all. But yeah, that's an interesting thought. But I don't know the lore enough.
Okay.
Unfortunately, but I just yeah.
Are you a Trekkie?
No, I'm not a Trekkie, but I have watched
Okay.
like Deep Space Nine and Star Trek, Enterprise, and all those. Like I've watched all of them, but I don't. The problem is I really enjoy. I really love sci-fi for obvious reasons, but I don't really memorize and seek. Like I don't like some people memorize stuff like characters. That's not how my brain works when I watch TV and movies. Like I kind of am aware of the narratives, but yeah, Star Trek is so good. Like I love the whole world. Deep Space Nine was my favorite because all the characters and everything, like it was the best.
Yeah. Deep Space Nine may have been the best Star Trek. If you want to hate me on that, you can send email
So
to
good, man.
Andy, Andy, at thechurch.digital. Feel
No, you
free,
get the
blow them
most
up.
obscure aliens
Yeah.
and creatures, and the acting was solid because that main dude was actually a legit. I mean, Enterprise is awesome, but it's fun, but it's slower too. It was a little, yeah. The themes in Enterprise were a little bit more deeper too. Some of them got really deep, and so
It matured
it
in
is
some of the
okay.
older ones.
See, the problem.
Like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the problem with me is on some of this is that I experienced most of my Star Trek stuff was binging. So I didn't watch, like I remember Star Trek would be on stuff when I was younger on USA during the day and it would bore me. And it wasn't until I was older, a little bit more aware of different things and I started binging a lot of it. I think I never watched, like I tried to watch the newest season on Paramount Plus. I liked the first season and then it got a little out there. But I also have a different experience because I watched all of them binging. And so I got to experience it in a different way. And so which it's not the same as watching it real time, you know.
Flat Cap says he almost named his son after DS9. What character? I would love to know the answer to that. By the way, we just had a rush of people watching on Twitch. So if you got any questions for Jay Kranda, online community pastor, online campus pastor, no, online community pastor, Saddleback Church. Feel
Now we're
free to
talking about
jump on
Star
that.
Trek out of all things.
Yeah, Star Trek. Like
Which
we're
my dad,
plumbing the
we're gonna
Death Star
push me,
here.
and I'm gonna be like, I don't
Yeah,
I
you don't know.
know.
Well, I mean, while we're stalling here, I'm curious, what's Saddleback's microsite policy? What are you guys doing right now? What's the experiment of that?
Yeah, so we kind of collectively think of our online community as a collective of people local, far away. And one of the reasons why we don't call it a campus is because we have people local that also watch, and we didn't want them to think you're part of the online campus when you're at home, and then one week you're in person. So we see the online community as everybody. And then the idea is when you take a next step, you get plugged into a campus. And if you live far away, your next step is to start to join our microsite strategy, which we call extensions, which are groups of 3 to 75 plus people that watch services regularly. And so we have, I think, a little over 30 of those around the world. And really, we're trying to make it more normal that if you're far away from our church and engaging, we want you to watch with other people and bring church into your area. And that's volunteer led. Some meet weekly, some meet bi-monthly, some meet monthly. It depends. And we get leads from talking about it on the weekend, we host, every 6 to 8 weeks classes on Zoom where we pitch that. I just went to Boise, Idaho, where we did a meetup and I promoted it, had 12 people in this coffee shop on a Saturday morning. And I said, hey, you guys should start an extension. So we're going to be starting an extension in Boise, Idaho. I also send emails. We did this a couple years ago where everybody in Singapore, I said, hey, everybody in Singapore, show up on the Zoom at this time. 10 people show up on the Zoom. I pitched the extension vision and they start an extension and now they have 25 people that meet regularly in an extension. Wow. So, but a lot of it is us trying to connect our strategy of having more locations around the world and then how does digital fit in? And so like, again, that's where you're connecting your digital experience with your org's objective. And our objective
Sure.
is to have more locations. And so online, specifically my job, the online community pastor, is to serve that vision. And so we're always trying to figure out how do we do that better, what's working, what's not. And yeah.
Maddie Mouse just jumped on. How would you handle online church with the church plant? I think Maddie just came on with the rush because that was been like almost half the conversation today. He just wrote a book, by the way, for those who came on. Church online is not the answer, but really featuring hybrid discipleship. And so, and we talked, his book is aimed at a 300-person church. And so Maddie Mouse, swing over to Amazon. Church online is not the answer. Search for Jay Kranda. Buy the book. I think that would be a great opportunity. We love the idea of small churches and church plants in this space, and so challenge you to jump on that. That's so good. Hey, speaking of hybrid, hybrid's a word that's often in church space misunderstood. I would love your take. When you hear hybrid church, when you hear hybrid ministry, when you hear that in religious context, hybrid, what do you think hybrid means? Like when you talk about it, hybrid in your book, what are you defining hybrid as?
Yeah, so words are, we use words kind of in different.
Notice I didn't say fidgetal.
Fidgetal. Yeah, that's true. That was your word. That was your.
Could you do fidgetal discipleship? Can we change? Can I get a copy of the book with just fidgetal on the cover?
You could. It just sounds like a bad word.
Can I mark on it myself if I buy one and like add myself as a co-author, Jeff Reed? True or false?
False. But
okay. All right. Go ahead.
No, I mean, what's hard about all this stuff is that all these words are loaded and mean things. And so like I talk about this idea of like, I remember when audiobooks really started booming, probably 10 years ago. And, I would tell somebody I read a book and they're like, well, did you do the audio? And they're like, you didn't read the book. And I was like, okay, so words matter, truth matters. And so it's like, the problem is the word read is going through this change because people are consuming content. And so like content differently. And so I'm more worried about not the method of how I experienced that book, more about the objective of what I need to learn from it. And so the problem is in transitional phases, words become problematic. And they mean different things. And so one of the reasons why we have the word hybrid is to kind of show this integration of digital ministry and physical ministry. And it's a no-brainer that if you're doing physical ministry, it should be a default, like that you're also doing digital, but we have to have the word hybrid in this in-between phase. So it's kind of like media and social media. Social media is added because media in the past was broadcast, newspaper, whatever, and it wasn't social. And so I think this is why it's hard in these in-betweens. So to me, hybrid it's the way we work. The idea, it's like saying like, people talk about this idea of like, one day we're going to have a computer connected to us and we're going to be able to like constantly talk to the world and it's going to be like in our brains. And the reality is we already have that just with our phones. And so we're already in the future. It's a different connection. And so with hybrid, I just say it's like you're just reaching your community and you're engaging your community and you're using whatever you have. And so it's not just about being physical. And I think most people think that way, but they don't realize that they are compartmentalizing it. It's the same idea, and there'll be different schools of thoughts here, but it's the same idea that we are both body and soul. We're immature and material. Yeah. And I always remind people, and they go, well, digital is not possible, blah. And I go, it's interesting that our primary relationship is with our God that's immaterial. Like our relationship with our Father is not a spatial relationship. And it's interesting how that can be strong. And so the same way as that I can be friends with you, Jeff, you and I are, we're not best friends, but I would say, I feel like you and we could catch up very quickly. And so we're not, and so the thought is that, but we've only met in person once. I'm trying to think.
Maybe two or three times.
Yeah, I remember
not
you were
that
in San Diego. You were in San Diego for that one thing.
I was in San Diego for something.
Yeah, but
I've been out there a couple times.
To say
not often.
We can't be friends or like close friends because we're not like somehow near each other. So I think this is where it's just
Breathing air molecules.
the language exists because we're an in-between understanding, and language codifies what we're trying to describe, and it can be a catalyst for the next stage. And that's why I do hope when you say, hey, I'm doing church in Colorado, you don't got to say I'm doing physical church and digital church. I think the idea is that you're just doing church. And so, yeah, so it's hard.
Very cool. I love that. And I consider you my friend, Jay Kranda. It means a lot.
Good.
Jay was the first guy. Oh, dude, we had dinner. We had Starbucks. So it's at least twice because I saw you in San Diego and we hung out at downtown Disney.
Oh, that's
You
right.
were
Greg Atkins was
yes,
there, and
Greg Atkinson and
and
oh my gosh, who was Niels?
Neil.
Niels was there as well.
Yeah, we were at
Ray
that.
DiArmas.
I walk by that.
At,
I walk by that Starbucks like every week because we're always at Disneyland with my family.
that was the trip. That was actually for me. That was where the vision of the Church Digital came to be. I literally bought theChurch.digital domain name at that
Oh,
PushPay
did you?
conference
Oh,
there
wow.
at downtown. And so like probably within 24, 48 hours of us hanging outside a Starbucks there in
I was
downtown
just talking
Disneyland.
to I had a Zoom with Chris, the founder of PushPay, and I was telling him how cool that event was and how my kids
Yeah.
still to this day, they I could speak anywhere in the world, but if it's not, we don't get a free stay at a Disneyland hotel, they don't think it's a good event. They're like, Dad, when are you going to do another one of those events? And I'm like, I don't think that's ever happening again. But I was just telling him how cool that event was. And so,
Yeah. For what it's worth, I kind of poked the bear a little bit with PushPay as well. Hey, you should do something like this. That was really cool. But when they had me speak at events, they didn't have me stay for free at Disneyland either. So
the funny thing is the Disneyland hotel too isn't even like, it's a cool hotel, but it's dated. It's
yes,
a dated
it's
hotel, but
it's like retro kind of
yeah, it's
retro classical
but
approach.
because it's in, yeah, like I still have a goal to take my kids to the Grand California. I've never stayed there, but it's so much money that I don't.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for another speaking gig to pop up, which probably will never happen, but I can hope.
Yeah. Hey, do you have a hard stop? I know you're on your lunch break in California. Are you good for maybe 5-10 more minutes?
I'm good for
If
like
you gotta
probably
go, you
5 more
got to.
minutes. Yeah.
5 more minutes. Let's
Yeah.
hit a couple questions. Cognition is asking, Jay, what advice would you give to someone trying to have more people engage online once weekly engagement seems to plateau during Sunday services? So how do you get, let's consider engagement. Well, first off, what do you consider engagement? Let's define that. And then how do you get more engagement beyond the Sunday morning service?
Yeah. So I think the obvious thing is a lot of times we're not talking to those on the stream or in whatever format. So like, for example, we made a change about a year ago where we went to on-demand YouTube strategy at our church. And we're very deliberate on talking to people on YouTube to leave comments. And we do everything from, a question that week to like, where are you watching from? And then I will spend time afterwards. But I found one of the best ways, to be honest, and this could be hard depending on your format of how you do this, but showing the previous week comment on the stream is a really good way. I actually got this from Chad and team at Elevation. They would have a TV behind them in their pre-service experience, and they would actually highlight comments real time. And there's something about highlighting, like YouTubers used to do this, like, hey, the first comment in the first 3 hours, I'll pin to the top. And that drives. But you can even print out. I had a friend at a church in Missouri would print out comments and just show it on stream. Like, hey, Jessica, I saw that you're from Delaware or whatever. And I think there's something about showing honoring and highlighting what you want. But I will say at a high level, this question of engagement in your streams or your weekly content is probably the thing I spend 15% of my week constantly thinking about. I'm constantly, how do we get more engagement on the weekend? Then I'm also like, we have a weekly meeting where we talk about, okay, great. We had, let's say 15, 18,000 people watch, but maybe we only had 14 comments or we only had 120 response cards. I'm constantly thinking through how do we get better at response. So like a small thing that our church does is that every 6 to 8 weeks, we'll have a PDF, like we're in this generosity series right now. We did a generosity message a couple weeks ago. and my pastor put together a 15-page how to think about generosity ebook, and that 5 times X'd our digital response cards that weekend, because the only way you could get it is by filling out our check-in form. And so again, those are the things, or like, hey, we have this song, the only way to get it is by checking in with us. And that,
Yeah.
you got to think, it's so, the same way as it's so easy to sit in the back row of your church and leave, it's way easier to watch online and not engage. So I do think we have to think more strategically of how you engage on that stream. And so like something small that we do is, hey, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there is a link in the description. Like we say that regularly. But again, this is something I hyper think about constantly. So I'm kind of with you. It's a moving target. It's hard. You got to be a good steward of it, and you got to keep iterating. Watch a lot of people, learn a lot. I'm constantly watching YouTubers and things do stuff. I'm like, oh, I can do that. Like I was talking to a mutual friend, Kenny Jang, and he said at his church, he was like recommending an idea, and he had this idea of like, in the service, and this is me just ripping off ideas, and I told him I'm going to rip this off. He said, hey, pull out your phones and download our app. You can engage there. By the way, I know there's a lot of things going on your phone right now, but one encouragement is when you're on your phone during church right now, if you're watching online, if you're in the room, just put your phone on focus mode. And him saying that small little bit, it's like, oh, I can make our service maybe 1% better this week with that little call to action. And I love that idea. I'm constantly stealing ideas.
Yeah, love that. And I've started using focus mode at a personal level more recently, and so that's a great idea for the context. By the way, you told me to put the comments online, and I did that. I don't know if you saw it pop up on the screen. Cognitive did that. Nice technology. We'll wrap with this question from Jay live. Does Jay want to share the story of the nude models created in VR chat that rated the VR chat service?
That's hilarious. Yeah, so we started streaming our services in VR chat. We have a volunteer of ours who builds VR worlds and came to us and built us a world for us for free. And we started this VR ministry where he hosts church every week where they watch the full worship service. Well, because it's VR chat, if you're not aware, VR chat's a little bit of the Wild West of a space. It's the most active VR social network space.
World, yeah.
And these worlds are open worlds. And VR chat tends to be a little like red light district vibes sometimes with like the different experiences. And we had a church service where, it's funny. I had seen these people came in and they were kind of wearing like Lululemon pants, like very tight pants. And I didn't really think much about it, but kind of a church hate blog took a screenshot of them from behind from a video that they saw of the service and decided to intentionally blur out their rear ends to make it look like they were fully nude. And it was really funny. And because the headline was, Saddleback has VR nude something, and it was not true. It was just Lululemon pants. And it was like, yeah. And the irony is they're making fun of this stuff, and they don't even think that it's a real people, because it was cartoonish characters. You know what I mean? So I don't even know. Anyways, but it was really funny because that couple people picked it up and it had my name in it too. And so I was getting texts from friends. Like, I was like, oh man, am I going to get in trouble on this one? Because I don't know if the PR was good, but it wasn't real. And it was just somebody, I don't know. We were just reaching people in this space, and it's like people walked in and I'm like, it wasn't true what they were saying. And I'm like, what? And so it just was a really funny story.
That's funny. I know, I want to say Tall Skinny Kiwi was the person that sent the article to me, and Jay, I admit I texted it to you. I remember. I don't know if I was the first, but you seemed to be like really surprised when you got the article from me. You were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So there you go. We're breaking news as it's happening. Awesome. Well, hey, we're gonna let Jay Kranda go. Go check out the book. The links in Discord, or the Discord links in Twitch. But the book is Church Online is not the answer. Jay, you're a little late. Got to hold up the book, man. Anytime the title said, you got to have it like available. Church Online church is not the answer. In nice red, Jay Kranda. Check that out. Hey, did I make the recommendations page?
You did. You did. You're
Awesome.
actually it's a good thing. So don't think of it as a bad thing. You're my last recommendation.
Was that because I was the last one to submit it?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
good.
no, no.
Well,
Actually, I think it more had to do with spacing of pages and me trying to figure out how to do it. But no, you're in there, man. Thank you for doing that, man.
yeah,
It means a lot.
you were like, I'm not. I actually have to go back and look. I think you're in my VR book at some point, even though you hated VR at the time. But that's conversation for a different day.
Stupid.
But we're gonna land the plane. Thanks for hanging out with us here. Swing over to our Discord channel if you're new. Discord, DISCORD.thechurch.digital. Get subscribed over there and join the community. I want to thank Jay Kranda for hanging out. Check out his book. And for more information, well, see him. But thanks, everybody. Have a good one. See you next time on the show. Okay.